Jeremiah Cole moved slowly, deliberately, as he fed another log into the iron stove. The wind outside howled against the sides of the cabin, and the old pine beams groaned in protest. His joints ached with the kind of cold that settled in deep and never quite left. It was the kind of night that made a man question why he kept living. 15 years alone did strange things to a man's soul. Out here, on the edge of the Texas wild, Jeremiah had found something that resembled peace. Or at least, silence. He'd stopped marking the days after the second year. There wasn't much left to count. Only the rhythms of survival. Trap, fire, sleep, repair, repeat. He didn't pray. He didn't curse. He simply endured. The knock came just after sundown. At first, he thought it was the wind again. But no, it was sharp, deliberate. 3 quick raps on the rough wood door. Then another. He rose from the chair, stiff and wary. No one came out here unless they were lost, or dangerous. His rifle leaned by the window. He took it up, cocked the hammer, and stepped to the door. He opened it only partway. 7 girls stood in the snow, their faces half hidden under thin buffalo hide cloaks. One had blood dried across her cheek. Another cradled a younger sister who looked barely conscious. They didn't shiver, but their bare feet were red with cold. He could tell by their braids and bone-beaded necklaces, they were Comanche. He started to close the door. Then the oldest girl stepped forward, raising a hand quickly. "Please," she said, her voice ragged with desperation. "We run. Bad men. Kiowa. Kill family. All." Jeremiah hesitated. He felt the weight of his past pressing against his chest like a boot. His hand gripped the edge of the door tighter. The girl pointed to the horizon, her words coming faster now. "We go south. Lost. No food. No fire. We no hurt." He could have turned them away. In fact, part of him wanted to. Comanche warbands had torn his life apart. He still heard the screams in his dreams, his wife, his son. He'd sworn once that he'd kill any who came near. But something cracked. The smallest girl at the back looked up at him, her eyes wide and black as river stones. In her face, he saw his daughter, not as she had died, but as she might have lived. He opened the door the rest of the way. The girls filed in, silent but wary. He motioned toward the hearth. "Sit. Warm up." He brought out dry blankets, peeled potatoes into a pot, and boiled water. Not one of them spoke for a long while. But as the fire glowed and the cabin filled with warmth, one of the girls began to hum, a low, soft tune, ancient and strange. The others listened. Jeremiah sat back in his chair and stared at the flames. Dawn broke hard and red over the plains, casting long shadows that crawled toward the ridge like reaching fingers. Jeremiah stood on his porch, rifle in hand, scanning the horizon with narrowed eyes. The girls were inside, asleep or pretending to be. He hadn't rested. He knew something was coming. He'd seen the first rider just after midnight, a lone scout, silhouetted against the moon. Then another. By morning, the land below his cabin wasn't a landscape anymore. It was movement, a tide. 700 warriors, Comanche. They emerged from the mesquite in waves, on horseback, paint glistening on their faces, weapons strapped to their backs. The war cries had not begun, but the silence was its own kind of scream. They did not charge. They did not speak. They circled the cabin slowly, methodically, until the ridge felt like a noose. Jeremiah stood still. His rifle felt heavier than it ever had. He didn't bother to load more rounds. He knew the math. One man, even a seasoned killer, couldn't outshoot an army. But he wasn't going to run. He wasn't going to beg. A lone figure broke from the circle, a tall warrior, older than the rest, with braids streaked in gray and a necklace of claws and turquoise. His horse moved slow, deliberate. He stopped 10 feet from the porch and stared up at Jeremiah. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Jeremiah finally lowered the rifle, not out of fear, but from fatigue. He met the warrior's gaze with tired eyes. "I gave him shelter," he said. "Nothing more. No harm touched them. They came to my door, and I opened it. That's all." The warrior said nothing. His eyes flicked toward the cabin behind Jeremiah. Then to the land around them. Then back to Jeremiah. "You want blood," Jeremiah said, quieter now. "I've got some left. But not much." The air held its breath. Then the door behind him creaked. The eldest girl stepped out, barefoot on the cold wood. Her hair was loose now, falling past her shoulders. She looked at the warrior, her father, and began to speak in Comanche. Her voice trembled but did not falter. She spoke of what happened. Of the Kiowa ambush, the escape, the days without food. Of the man who had given them fire, bread, blankets. Who had not touched them, not once. Her voice broke at the end, and she stepped back. The warrior dismounted slowly. He walked forward, each step silent on the frozen ground, and planted his war lance upright in the earth. It stood there like a flag, its feathers catching the morning wind. Jeremiah didn't move. The chief looked him over one last time, then gave a single, sharp nod. And just like that, the circle broke. Horses turned. Riders melted back into the plains. No trumpets, no words. Only the soft thunder of hooves disappearing into distance. The girl turned to Jeremiah and smiled. Not wide, but real. And Jeremiah Cole, who had buried his heart 15 years ago, realized in that moment, he was not alone anymore.